Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another Women of Horror Spotlight. Today I have with us, she's an author, and she has a new book out right now that's called For the Sake of Bridget. I have with us Nora B. Peavy. Nora, welcome to the Horror Room.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about For the Sake of Bridget.
For the Sake of Bridget is about two unfortunate women who get into a very bad neighborly feud, and then some really horrible things happen to them because they manage to anger a goddess who is very unhappy. She's a nature goddess, and her bees end up getting injured in the middle of this feud, and the rest of the animals that she cares and protects. So she takes vengeance.
So what gave you the inspiration for this story?
Well, originally it was going to be put into another anthology, which was a bee charity book, but that charity book ended up not going the way that it was supposed to. So then I just ended up finishing the story and putting it out as a regular novelette for myself.
So when you were thinking of this story, how long did it take from the concept, thinking of the concept, to the actual getting out and published?
Well, the way that I usually work is I'm a pantser, so I don't go through and write an outline. I just get an idea. I was told that it was a bee story, so I like working a lot with folklore and different gods and goddesses. I went through and researched different cultures. I picked one, and then I went from there and thought, well, what would actually she be upset about if something happened to her bees, and how would that happen? And I went from there. And from the time that I wrote it until the time that it actually came out wasn't very long. It's only been about a couple months since I wrote it and it went to print. I was pretty lucky.
That's amazing. Now, as an author, right now, it is, this is an amazing time right now. There's a lot of horror authors who normally wouldn't be able to get their work out. They're able to get their work out with small presses, with self-publishing. But also, there are some struggles that come with that as well.
Yes.
What are some struggles that you ran into?
Struggles that you run into are working with different people's personalities mainly, I think, and finances. Sometimes you're not very sure if you're going to get paid when people say they're going to pay you. That can be an issue with contracts. I haven't personally run into that, but I've heard that that has happened to a lot of people. Personalities are definitely an issue that everybody has to deal with, no matter if it's a large press or if it's a small press. Sometimes the things that you have to deal with, for instance, on Amazon, it depends on who does the review and how they write it. It might get taken down, which tends to hurt somebody who's like me, who publishes more indie, than somebody like Stephen King, who gets a ton of reviews. And it just depends on how it's phrased. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but people have had interviews taken down and have not been very pleased with that. It hasn't happened to me yet, so fingers crossed that it doesn't.
Now, it's crazy that you bring it up. So I've talked to quite a few indie horror authors who have said that about Amazon, that, people put reviews up, and for whatever reason, they get taken down. These are positive reviews. Mm-hmm. And, that can be detrimental to an indie author.
It can, if you're not known and people don't want to spend their money on you. If they only have a little bit of money, they might go for something that they know is a tried and true name that they're going to enjoy versus trying a new author. So it's kind of hard. Plus, they might look at it and say, well, this is a small press. I don't know this press, but they might know somebody big like Random House, or they might just go, oh, well, I recognize the Penguin. So I'm gonna publish, because sometimes people are just very visual and they don't remember things, so they will buy just because they recognize the Penguin, and that's it. And that's obviously not me yet, but hopefully someday I'll be with Random House or somebody else big.
Now, right now you're releasing a book through Godless.
Yes.
And it seems like the route that a lot of splatterpunk and indie horror authors are going. Um, Tell us a little bit about your experience with Godless.
Well, this is my first time actually releasing with them. And before I went to Unveiling Nightmares, I didn't even know what Godless was. So when I met Thomas Stewart, he actually explained to me what it was. He's another author. And I was like, well, this seems like something that I should get in on. It seems like something that I should support. I really enjoy supporting the indie community, and it's a good place to sell your books. It's another avenue. Also, it's taking away money from Amazon, which I know they probably don't like that, but I like to support smaller places when I can. I like to do local businesses when I can. I'm not really a big fan of the fat cats. I realize you can't get around them, that they're there, they're never going to go away. But if there's somehow that I can somehow deter them from making more money off of me and other people, that's great. If they can get a better deal. Right now, as a matter of fact, if you can go to Godless, you can buy my book for 99 cents. If you go to Amazon, it's like $1.99 for the Kindle version and $8.99 for the paperback. So that is a big difference in price. If anybody is listening, go to godless.com.
Yes, most definitely. Listen, definitely check it out. Now, it seems like more and more readers are going towards, I guess, the next generation. I'm sounding old, but they're going towards the digital copy. Mm-hmm. Now, is that something that you're noticing when it comes to your book sales?
Well, a lot of the editing that I have done for different companies has been in traditional print, but a lot of authors, interestingly, when they get their paid copies, want to get it in PDF or something else, simply because they don't have a lot of room to keep all the books that they're published in at home. I'm kind of selfish that way, that I like the smell of print, and I love seeing my name in print and having the hard copy. And I'm going to be 50 in a couple years, so I'm very old school about that. But I don't mind reading, on an electronic reader or on my computer, but that's mostly for work. Like if I'm doing stuff for the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival and reading scripts for them, or if I'm working for a different publishing company doing editing or say slush reading, then I don't mind it so much. But it also really is hard on the eyesight. So I find that the more I read on the computer, the more it really bugs my eyes. It's not fun.
And I agree. I like the paper. I'm old school. I'll be 42 in September. But I like the old school paper. I do have my Kindle. I mean, I use that mostly if I'm, have a long flight or I'm doing a train ride somewhere. I will, because I don't want to bring 20 books with me. But I will use that for that. So I mean, it definitely has its purpose. But I'm old school. The paper it's nice to have something physical. Listen, I like physical copy stuff. I don't like digital movies and digital books and shit like that. I mean, it has its purpose, but I like physical. And it just seems like even video games now or digital, people are buying digital instead of physical. I'm like, nah, I'll pay the extra money to get that physical, because it basically seems like we're going away from actual physical media.
Well, and a lot of people don't understand that if you pay a lot more money for a hard copy book, it's because it's not a cheap book that's just been glued together. It's actually been hand sewn, and the leaves that are put together, it's going to last longer than your paperback book, which is what generally was in the dime store and was called pulp fiction for a reason. So they're nice. And not only that, you have different choices of paper, and the rag end paper. I love that. I love the texture. I love all the inks. I love the way books smell. I love recycled books for art. I mean, I love books, just any book.
I'm the same way. Now, you brought up working with presses. Unveiling Nightmare, Crystal over there. I love the guys over there. Great job. She's amazing. Now, working with presses, that there's a lot of new authors out there who are doing this self-publishing route. Now, and some of them are afraid to go the press route, working with small or big press. You've worked with smaller presses. What can you tell new authors? Some of the advantages and and I guess disadvantages?
Well, I did not start out the way that a lot of small press authors do. I actually have a degree, and I started out thinking that I was going to work my way from the top and just be there, but that didn't work out. But I've always been published by other people, and I've never done self-publishing. But in talking to a lot of my friends who self-publish, I think that's a great way to start out because you make a lot of money for yourself, and that's wonderful. However, it's also really good to network. I always say network, network, network. But be careful who you network with, and you should never have to pay anything to submit anywhere. If you have to pay anything to submit anywhere, any fee, then it's not a legitimate press, whether it's small or large. As far as small presses, I generally think that most of them are pretty good. I do try to go by word of mouth with other people that I know who have been published. And if I like somebody, I'll tend to try to work with them again. I look on Geotrope. They do have a lot of listings. I think their subscription per month now is $5 or $10. It's not that much. And then like a lot of the Facebook groups too. That's how you can find a lot of the listings. But as far as being a new author, I think the best thing that you need to know is you're going to get a lot of rejections. You have to have a thick skin. Everybody gets rejections. It's okay. Even seasoned people get rejections. Sometimes you're going to get form rejections. That doesn't mean necessarily that you're any better or any worse than anybody else. It just means there were a lot of people that sent things in, and editors don't have time to give you any advice. So it's nothing personal. And small presses generally tend to be more personal, and they might, if they don't like something, they might forward your work on to somebody else, or they might tell you where you can send it. So you tend to get a more personal experience with the small press than you will if you go large right away.
Now, some great information. Now, you are an editor. You've worked as an editor. And there's some, new authors out there who say they don't have the means to afford a good editor for the self-published book. How important is it to have an editor, and what are some avenues that new authors can, go to that's a little cost efficient?
Well, if you can't afford an editor, I will say that the program that I recommend is Pro Editor over Grammarly. I hate doing commercials or anything like that, but I use Pro Editor myself for writing. I've used Grammarly, and Microsoft Word isn't going to catch everything. You do need something else. It helps if you have a friend that you can really work with. Writing critique groups are really good if you can get into those and you can share your work that way. You can oftentimes find somebody that you can swap work with who might have better skills in one area of writing than you do. That's how I started out. As a matter of fact, I started out with Ken Liu, who is now in really big science fiction, if you know that name. And
Yes.
we were both in Critters, and around both the same time we were in Critters, and now he's doing a lot better than I am, and I'm very happy for him. But I remember reading his stories before he was big, and we really gave each other a lot of really good feedback, and that really helped with our writing. So that would be another piece of advice. But I can't really afford an editor for my things either. And it just so happens that I've made friends with people who are editors, and they're willing to give me discounts, or sometimes you can, like I said, swap different skills or work for them for a little bit. As far as really needing an editor for if you're submitting to someplace, yes, grammar is really important. And if you have a ton of errors, they're not going to look at it. But you really also have to be able to tell a good story. If you're not a good storyteller, first and foremost, if your pacing isn't good, then you're not going to get past anybody. Usually what happens is they'll read the first 10 pages. If they don't like the first 10 pages, in like the slush pile, if you get pulled out of there and you're not a big name, you're just going to get rejected, because if it doesn't have any fast action and nobody is interested in what you're writing, it doesn't matter whether or not your grammar is perfect.
Yes, because it definitely has to flow evenly. Like as someone who is, I'm a reader, I'm not a writer, and I do a lot of reading, and I like indie horror novels. But sometimes you grab one, and you're like, where the fuck is this going? Like, it's jumping so many places, and it just doesn't go, and it's confusing. And like, I think that's important. That's when an editor or a proofreader may come in handy, just not for the grammar part or the punctuation, but also for the actual flow of the story.
Yeah, I've learned to kill my babies. I've gone in and like killed the first 18 chapters of something, and I've just been like, okay, 18 chapters, I love this, but you're not working. I think the story should start here. Now, sometimes if you tell that to other people, they have a really hard time hearing that because they're very attached to their work. But I say, just be willing to kill your darlings. Just kill everything if you need to. Restart your story, rearrange it. If you need to take the ending and put it at the beginning, do it. It might work better. Just be open to people's advice. Don't be afraid to cut things, but save them. Don't ever permanently delete them. Just put them in a different folder, because you never know if you're going to want to use them for something else, or bring them back in at a different part of the story. They might work better. But yeah, I used to be afraid to cut things, and now I'm not afraid to cut anything.
But doesn't that take a certain kind of, I would say, a certain kind of author that's willing to take criticism and to, I can imagine your book is your baby and somebody reads it and says, okay, chop this big chunk out and chop this out. And you're like, no.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Do you want, or what your reasons are for writing? Are you writing for your ego and you think that you already learned everything that you can know? Or do you think that it's a lifelong journey? Because for me, I always want to keep learning, and I always think that I can get better. And I don't think there's anything that I can't learn from somebody else, even if there's somebody that's only published one story and I've published more than one story. They might be able to teach me something. Even if I have a degree, there are people that I have learned so much from that don't have a degree. So I never really think that I know everything. I always think that you can learn something from somebody else.
I totally agree. Now, were you always into horror, or is that something that you just got into over time?
If you look for me on the internet, I was first published as a modern poet. That's what I went to graduate school for, but I did not finish because I really love horror. And while I was in there, it was in the mid-90s, and they were not teaching any of the horror authors that I loved. Nowadays, people don't realize what a privilege it is to have those type of classes. They really don't. If I had that, I probably would have gone for fiction and horror and sci-fi as a major, and I would not be a graduate school dropout. But then I also would have more debt. And I also realized it's a paper game, and you're just chasing a piece of paper. So I said to myself, why am I just chasing this piece of paper? Is this going to actually get me a better job when I get out? Because my BA, I already had my communication skills and writing skills, but that was during the early aughts when they had all of the people that were getting laid off. So I would go interview, and they'd say, well, you have all this great intellectual educational experience, but you don't have any real world experience, so we can't hire you. So I would go temp, and I would get some experience, and they say, well, now you have a little bit of experience and you have a degree, but we know if we hire you for this job, then you're just going to leave anyways. So I couldn't win either way. So going to graduate school at that point just seemed like it was not a good investment time. So I just temped, and I just started writing on my free time, and I took my graduate portfolio and I started publishing it because I just wanted to see my name in print. So I'm out there as a modern poet first, and that's very, very different from being a horror writer, but I do still love my poetry and Shakespeare.
Have you ever thought about doing like horror poetry?
I have
Mixing the
written
two?
some. I honestly don't write that much poetry as I do fiction right now. I'm actually thinking of trying to get into script writing right now. People tell me
Nice.
they like my dialogue a lot. So, and I'm one of those people, with everything that I've been through, I tend to put comedy into my horror. So I'm thinking that might be really good for script writing. So I want to try my hat at that. Plus, I love photography, and I've been doing that since I was in 8th grade. And I'm an artist, so I'm hoping I might be able to combine the two. I don't know if I really want to direct, but I definitely know that I want to write. That would be fun.
Well, I would love to see you on, I mean, either side of the camera. That would be amazing.
Thank you.
Now, is it impossible? You're welcome. Now, is it impossible as an author not to put yourself into your books?
No, there's a little piece of me in every single character, I think. Even while I was writing for the sake of Brigid, I did make the character with my name. And sometimes when I was writing, I accidentally wrote it Nora instead of with an H. And that was kind of funny to me. I honestly don't know why I named her the same name as me, except that it just seemed like she would be a Nora. I do put a lot of my own experiences into my writing. I am one of those people that loves to go to restaurants, and I will eavesdrop on conversations horribly
That's me
if I
too.
find
That's me
something.
too.
Yeah,
That's me
and
too.
sometimes I don't want to leave the restaurant when I'm done with my food because I want to know what's going to happen because it's so
Yes.
juicy. I'm very guilty of that, and then I will go home, and it does end up in a story. I've been married twice, and I've been guilty of taking some of my ex's ideas and putting them in my stories too. And they're like, "Wait, what? That was my idea. I just taught." I'm like, "Honey, you can't expect that you can say something around a writer, and if you're not going to use it and you're not a writer, that idea is just going to be put out there and wasted." Like,
Yeah.
it's just the way it works. So I don't know. So yeah.
Now, now, I don't know if I'm supposed. I don't know if this is public knowledge or not, but you are dating author I had on my show, Thomas Stewart.
Yes.
Now, how amazing is that to be in a relationship with another horror author?
Pretty amazing. It's the first time I've ever been in a relationship with anybody who wrote in the same genre as me. I dated a beat poet for about 6 months. That was an experience within itself. But I usually haven't dated writers. I don't know how that ended up that way. I've usually dated visual artists. So to share that with Thomas is really special because we can swap our ideas. We're actually planning on writing together, which would be amazing. And
Nice.
he's such a talented author. I can't wait to see what he's going to do as he grows. I really admire his work. So it's fun because when I talk about things, he actually understands what I'm talking about and he's not grossed out. And he also doesn't like zone out when I'm on the phone talking about a plot like, yeah, that's great, baby. That sounds really good. It's not very placating because he's actually excited and enthusiastic about it. So it's nice.
Now, have you stole any of his ideas?
No.
Okay.
No, I would never do that. Plus, he definitely would know since we run in the same circles, and he hasn't taken any of mine either. So I would know. I would get him for that.
He's never say, "Wait a minute, honey, that's one of my characters." I'll tell you about it.
He actually did design my book cover, though, for the sake of Brigid. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was
it's
sweet.
a nice
I
book
really
cover too.
like it. Yeah, and I've designed a book cover that he is hopefully going to use. The book isn't out yet, so can't talk about it, but I like the book cover, so we'll see where it goes.
Awesome. All right, one last thing I'm going to bring up. It's a controversial thing, and you know it's coming, Nora. You're no longer as Thomas. You're no longer with Psychotoxin Press.
Yes.
Was that a tough decision to make?
Okay, I'm just going to put all my cards on the table and just be really brave about this. No, it was not. Since the time that I went there, I was being sexually harassed by Christopher Pelton. I had left a different press. I thought that this was going to be a great career move for me. I was a new author there. I did not know any of the other authors, so I did not know who I could turn to. I tried to placate him. It was very awkward for me because Thomas was so close to him, and Thomas and I started dating, and I didn't really know how to handle the situation because I did not want to ruin their relationship, and it was really hard for me. So it was not that hard for me to leave. As far as the allegations, I know there are some people that do not think what he has done is true. I will tell you that yes, what he has done is true, and people who don't believe him should definitely listen to me, and they should listen to the other women out there because they do have a story to tell. And yes, it is very hard for us to talk about, and yes, I know he will probably see this and have something to say about it, but I also do have the message receipts where I said no repeatedly. No, I'm with Thomas. No. And that's all I have to say about that. I have the proof. So.
Well, Nora, where can everyone find you?
Mostly right now, I just started a blog. It's called shewritesfast.blog, or wait, no, .wordpress. I used to have a .blog. It's .wordpress right now. Sorry. I'm also on Facebook as Onyx Brightwing, and Brightwing is just like it's Bright Wing, but it's all one word. So those are the two easiest places to find me right now. Hopefully I'll have a website up. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, one thing I'm going to tell everybody, get your asses over to Godless and grab your copy of For the Sake of Bridget. Whether it be the paper or the digital, either one is okay with us.
Yes.
Nora, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you for coming to the Heart Room.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to Heart Room, everyone, right there. By the way, I don't say this enough. Please hit that like and subscribe button. It definitely helps out the channel and it helps me out a lot. I gotta start saying that a lot more. So, everyone, I'm Travis Bruce. That's Nora B. Peavy. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye.